Good morning for the people and participants who are just joining. We are waiting just 1 minute more and we will be starting. Yeah, I think we can start by now. It's already time. So good morning to all of you. Thanks a lot for joining us today to this webinar organized by FEBEA, the European Federation of Ethical and Alternative Banks and Financiers. This webinar will be on the social housing position of ethical finance, based on a paper we just published, as you can see, From Assets to Access, Ethical Finance to Leverage Social Housing. This webinar is organized in the framework of a program entitled Social Inclusion Finance Technical Assistance, financed by the European Investment Bank. We are very glad to welcome all of you today. There is a huge interest for the topic, and we are really glad to be able to present to you this paper and to have this discussion today. Regarding our agenda, we will have two main question sessions where you will be able to ask your question either using the chat or raising your hand and ask it directly to the different speakers. I have to inform you that this session is going to be recorded. So in case you don't feel comfortable, you can switch off your camera. And yeah, the session is going to last around 2 hours, 1.5 hours maximum. And the session is going to be moderated by Valentina Pateta, who is policy officer at FEBEA. And she will organize first, as you can see on the agenda, a presentation of the paper. Then we will have a stakeholder discussion with our different esteemed participants and speakers. We will have a quick break to get back a bit of energy. And then we will have a presentation from some FEBEA's members involved in social housing, presenting you the work they do on the topic and the good practice they are implementing and the challenges as well. And it will be followed by another question and answers session. So without further ado, I'm handing the floor to Valentina Pateta.
Thanks a lot for the presentation and introduction, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our workshop. Before starting with the workshop, I will just share with you a quick presentation of FEBEA. As Marion said, FEBEA is the European. They range from banks, cooperative banks, financial cooperatives, social investor, community foundations. So inside our membership, you can see really a variety of social finance, ethical finance providers. But what they are in common is that they provide financial resources to those sectors or those initiatives that really can make the difference for the community. So they foster financial and social inclusion. They provide resources for initiatives that have the aim to promote local development and also to reinforce social cohesion. Of course, the majority of our members is also active in social housing, and also it's for this reason that housing is also a topic that as FEBEA we follow. We started more than 1 year ago to address the topic. At the beginning, we organized a very technical workshop in person in Vienna, and then we decided also to write a position paper. The aim of this workshop, but also the aim of our activity on housing, on social housing, is to create a collective understanding of how we can ensure that housing policies and investment can really make the difference. And we want also, of course, to share our point of view, our perspective, because we think that in the housing sector, in the housing market, there is the possibility to have a different and alternative alternative approach. But I want now to give the floor to Anna Ghilardi. Anna Ghilardi is the author, is the researcher of the paper. Now she's advocacy officer at the Sustainable Finance Lab. She's working on a FEANTSA project, but at the time she was part of policy team of FEBEA. So Anna, if you want to introduce yourself, please, if you want to add something, please, and then you have the time to present the paper. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Vale, and thank you everyone for being here and showing so much interest in, of course, this pressing issue. Yeah, as Vale said, I'm Anna. I don't work at FEBEA anymore, but this was my last product. And I now work at Sustainable Finance Lab. It's an academic think tank based in the Netherlands. But I specifically am advocacy officer at FEANTSA, a Brussels-based project to do advocacy at the EU. Well, without further ado, so this paper was meant to show that there, of course, there is a housing crisis. Actually, let me share one slide. So we can show how severe the crisis is. So there is a crisis, but also there are possible solutions in the market already, such as social housing models. And also there are willing financiers, but unfortunately, they are not explored enough. They are not given the importance that they should be given. And so at the EU level now, there is more interest in exploring this issue, despite housing not being a European competence. And a lot of focus has been put on affordable housing at the moment, which is surely very important, but it's also very different from social housing. So affordable housing is housing that uses a blend of private and public finance and is aimed at lowering the price of housing, the cost of housing for the average citizen. So is mainly aimed at the middle class. But social housing, on the other hand, is also a blend of public and private finance, but is aimed at including in the market those vulnerable groups that otherwise would be excluded. So there is a substantial difference of goals and aimed and public that this is aimed at. So there needs to be more recognition of this difference, because surely money and attention needs to go to affordable housing, but also to social housing, because they address different issues. So as we can see, there is a diversity of models of housing in the market, in the housing market, that is also reflected by a diversity of financiers in the financial market, because there are those that are more prone to fund private housing, those that are more prone to fund affordable housing, but also those whose main goal is to fund social housing. However, these are not explored enough. They are not enough value is put on them, despite their impact being major and addressing a very serious issue, because ethical finance providers prioritize social inclusion and access over financial viability and profit, which is the main trend in the market currently, because the main issue in the housing market is that the rising trend is that of financialization of housing, which means that, so financialization happens when housing is treated as a commodity, as an asset. So there's speculation happening on this commodity, while the opposite is true, which is a social good. Housing is a social good, and it's a fundamental right of human beings. It's enshrined it's recognized as a human right in many international conventions, even in the European Pillar of Social Rights. But the treatment of housing as an asset effectively strips a lot of people of this right, because it excludes them from the market. So we can see that there's a market failure here, because housing is not allocated appropriately, it's not allocated efficiently, and so a lot of people are excluded. However, as we said, there is an already established link between like an already established channel between social housing projects and willing financiers. There are ethical finance providers that recognize the value of social housing, maintaining prices low and providing access to those that are excluded from the market. However, there are some issues here because ethical finance providers are not recognized in their legal status, and also, well, not in a comprehensive way, and also they are not sufficiently supported to support in turn the social housing sector. And this is because ethical finance providers essentially have limited liquidity. Sorry, their liquidity is constrained because, first of all, housing projects are capital intensive. So for a small entity, for a small financial intermediary, it's already very hard often to finance to the maximum potential housing projects, but also to guarantee social inclusion rather than financial viability, they need to offer low interests and long-term horizons. Then FEBEA members can explain their criteria better later, but this is very important because you can't offer favorable conditions when you don't have enough liquidity to do so. And we have seen that with the experience of InvestEU and other bank guarantees in the past, that these are very useful for small ethical finance providers, because putting extra liquidity inside an ethical finance provider allows the latter to be an effective leverage, an effective lever or an enabler of impact, because not only they multiply the funds that are put in their pockets, but also they maximize the impact. Because we can be sure that since they are value driven, that they grant their loans and their credit to social housing providers that maximize impact rather than profit. Another issue that constrains the liquidity of ethical finance providers is the prudential framework of the EU, which is a very important tool that guarantees financial stability, but often impacts smaller players disproportionately. So for those who are not familiar, the prudential framework is a set of regulations that the EU put in place after the global financial crisis that imposes on banks to keep to retain some capital for every loan that an entity gives out, so that this capital acts as buffer in case of financial distress. And while this is very important, it's very constraining for smaller players that are subject to the same rules as bigger players that have much bigger balance sheets and have financial operations and hold a lot of capital, but also are very often irresponsible. And we know that ethical banks and the ethical finance sector is an extremely resilient segment of the financial market, as said by the ethical finance reports that every year is published by FEBEA together with Banca Etica. And also it's a value-driven sector. So we know that they're in their risk management models, they also include the value that is brought to the economy. So a more proportional prudential framework would also act as a reward system, both for their resilience and for the value that they bring to the economy, also by recognizing the importance of certain players and maximizing their impact to the economy. But this is just the gist of the paper. If you have any questions, please, by all means, we have a couple Q&A sessions, and I look forward to that. And I will give the floor back to Valentina, and I very much look forward to the discussion that will follow. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Anna, for the presentation. And yes, of course, if you have any type of insight, we want to share insights, you have question, we have, as Anna said, different moments to do it. But of course, you can also reach us via email if you need more information. Before starting with the stakeholder dialogue, I want just to add some remarks as FEBEA. In the sense that our idea of housing is that for us, housing is more than a need, is a right, is a fundamental right. So we are also aware that housing is a multidimensional challenge, and we know that there are different problems inside housing. But for this, we need a multidimensional approach. We really welcome the efforts and the engagement of the European Union at all levels, from the Commission, Parliament. We know there is really a disengagement in solving and try to solve this housing crisis. But we believe that in order to have a really transformative and transformative affordable housing plan, we need to clarify at least 3 aspects. The first is the target. Whom we aim to support via this affordable housing plan. Then, which actors we want to mobilize for this plan. And third, with what kind of resources we need to address specific needs that we have inside housing crisis. What we want to stress that it's important to have a tailor-made approach instead to have one size fits all approach. We believe that it's important to recognize that inside housing crisis there are different levels of urgency and also of problems. And now we can start with this stakeholder dialogue. We are really happy to have different stakeholders. The idea is to, of course, to exchange opinion, but also to try to understand also, especially from the Housing Task Force of the European Commission and from Housing Crisis Committee of the European Parliament, what is the vision of this affordable housing plan. So we will have a representative of the European Parliament, a representative of Housing Task Force, a representative of European networks like FEANTSA and Cooperative Europe. So I will ask to the different speakers to just introduce themselves, and then I will start with the dialogue. You can take the floor.
Who do you think shall be starting, Valentina?
Yeah, we can start with the representative of European Parliament. We should have Irene Tinagli.
Yes. Hi, good morning. Sorry, I was just waiting to see who. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me and for this opportunity to, tell you a little bit what we are doing in the Parliament. So, facing the crisis that Anna, explained very well and very clearly. So the problem of rising prices and increasing homelessness, but it's not just that. It's a problem that is increasingly affecting also the middle class. Workers, students, young couples. So facing this crisis, the European Union has decided to start dealing with this issue and has created a task force in the European Commission and a specific mandate to one of the commissioner to draft an affordable housing plan that should be published early next year, so in the first quarter of 26. And on the other hand, the Parliament has decided to create this special committee on the emergency, on the housing crisis, which I'm chairing. We started our work on February. So what does special committee means? Just to clarify, it means that it's not a permanent committee. So it has a limited life. It will last 1 year, which is renewable, I think, up to 6 months. and it's not a legislative committee, but it's a committee that has the purpose of studying, analyzing, get deeper into an issue, understanding all the dimensions of the problem, and draft and vote a special report which will include all the findings of the work of the committee and possibly also some recommendations. So this report, I think, it will be very important, because the Commission has said several times that it will use the inputs of the Parliament also as one of the main inputs for the affordable housing plan. So, of course, this is a big responsibility for us, but it's also an opportunity. So it's an opportunity for the Parliament to contribute to the drafting of this plan. And we started our work in February, and we started with a lot of hearings, because we wanted to really understand. It's a complex, multifaceted problem. Valentina, you said it. It is indeed extremely complex. So we want to understand all the different dimensions. We want to understand the real needs. We want to understand what are the obstacles that prevent the actors that would like to help and provide answers, but are held back by, I don't know, different types of regulations, or by financing access, or by other sorts of problems. So what are the problems? But also what could be the possible solution. So we also look at best practices. So we try to see what is happening in certain countries and cities, to see what is working, what is not working, and see if we can do something to scale up the best practices, or to create opportunities for new solutions. So this is, like, in a nutshell, our mission. This is what we are doing. And actually, I think probably the very first public hearing that we had, was a public hearing on state aid, which for many people appeared weird. What does state aid rules have to do with housing? But actually, if you are active in this sector, if you work with this type of ethical finance and public-private projects, you know exactly what the problem is. So the problem.
Sorry, Ms. Tinagli, you're mute.
Oh, sorry. Sometimes
Yeah,
it does it by itself. I don't know why. So, the state aid rules. Well, first of all, this is a pure European competence. So I think it's one of the instruments that really call into action the European Union, and the EU state aid rules. They are made in a way that, on one hand, there are rules that help support what are called the services of general economic interest, like public transport, postal services, health services, and also social housing for disadvantaged people. So this SGAI decision allow member states to grant support to social housing projects without notification, without any compensation limit. So it is indeed included in the possibility to support this kind of projects. But this is dedicated, as I was saying, social housing for disadvantaged people. The problem is, as we are moving, as the problem is expanding towards the middle class, so we are moving from the concept of social or public housing to a concept of affordable housing for middle income households. And this is much more vague, because it's less, there is no uniform or clear definition, especially in the SGAI, rules and decision. There is no specific definition of what we mean by affordable housing. And so these kind of projects, which usually are the projects that are subject of public-private partnerships or the intervention of special ethical finance, etc., they find themselves in a difficult situations, because each one of these projects has to be notified, has to be granted the exception by the European Commission, which has happened. I mean, it's not that it's not impossible to get, but of course, as you can imagine, it takes a long time. So these are already projects that are complex and long. So you add complexity, you add months or years to this supply chain, and this is a problem. So we wanted to explore how the European Union could help supporting these projects. And I think that the European Commission, I mean, it's not up to me, but so if there are people from the task force, they are more entitled than me to answer these questions. But I think that the European Commission is seriously thinking about working on this framework to better adapt to these needs. And then we've done also public hearings in trying to explore models which are not the traditional supply and demand mechanisms, because one of the problems with the housing market is that for many people, traditional economists or certain political groups, they have these ideas, it's a market, so just leave it to the demand and supply dynamics and it will solve by itself. Just remove if there are obstacles to permitting, so the people can build, and the more you build and the more you will solve the problem. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. There have been cities and regions where there have been a lot of buildings, but the problem is that this stock of houses, they are not serving one market or one demand. So it's a stock of houses that is actually serving multiple demands, multiple different markets. Each one of these markets has different price equilibria. Just to give you an example, so the same stock of houses nowadays satisfy not only the demand for long-term residential rent or purchase, but they satisfy, they address short-term rentals for touristic purposes, or short to medium-term rentals for students or for workers' mobility. Workers' mobility, students' mobility have increased enormously in the past years, but they haven't been accompanied by specific policies for housing. So student housings or residence for workers, we haven't built that, even though we have millions more workers and students that are moving across Europe, and they are looking, of course, for a place to stay where they have to work and study. So you see, these are different markets, and they have different equilibria, but they all use the same stock of houses. So and plus, in addition to that, there is, of course, also an increasing use of real estate as an investment asset. So the demand is potentially endless. So you could keep building, millions of houses, but the problem is that you are not sure which kind of demand and needs you are serving, because they're all mixed. So unless you are very clear in identifying what kind of needs you want to address, what type of demand you want to satisfy, because you want to prioritize, then the risk is to have policy making and also a lot of money just going where it's not needed. So this is why it is important, I think, that we have this kind of analysis at the European level, and we need the help and the support of all the actors that have expertise and experience in these fields to help us designing the better suited policies to make sure that what we do is targeted enough to have an impact, because we shouldn't forget what is our primary objective. The primary objective is to help people finding a decent home. So the primary objective is not to build for the sake of it or to make real estate developers richer. Our objective is to make sure that people that today cannot afford a decent home can find the kind of supply that they need. So this is what we are trying to do. Is extremely complex, as I said, because this is what I realized. This is not one market. This is multiple markets intertwining and affecting each other. And actually the for example, the short-term lease and the touristic market that has entered the residential market, they have affected also the expectation of rentability of houses. So they have raised the price even of those houses that are rented for long term. And in turn, they have also affected the price of purchasing a house, because the house has become an asset that it can be very profitable in certain areas. And this has attracted more investors. I mean, per se, it wouldn't be bad. This is how markets work. You know, they work to maximize profitability. The problem is that this market, as I said, also contains something that is a public good, because providing decent housing is a public good and is a service of general interest. So we need to find ways to detach these different markets. It doesn't mean to kill the traditional, real estate market. Absolutely not. But it means to make sure that it's not the reversal, that the dynamics of the pure market dynamics are not killing the possibility of preserving a service of general interest and a public common good, because it is a public good. Cities that are experiencing this extreme stress in housing prices are experiencing, they cannot attract or retain workers. They cannot attract and retain teachers, drivers for their public transportation services, cleaners. All the services that the city needs, that people need, are crowded out, and they cannot, because simply they cannot access. So it is a social issue, an equality issue, but it's also an economic issue, a competitiveness issue. So we have to be very, very determined and not ideological in trying to find a pragmatic answer. Because if we start being ideological, how in theory should work, we will not solve the problem, because it's not working, because we've done this in the past 20 years and it's been worse and worse. So we need to be very pragmatic and trying to find good, reasonable solutions. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Irina. Really, it was really interesting to listen your point of view and also what you are doing at the European Parliament. But I have also, a question that I want to share with you, because you are also be the chair of Econ Committee. So I want to ask you if the current fiscal, financial, and also competition framework of the European Union is in a certain way compatible with a huge agenda for public and social housing. I mean, it's possible have an ambition for housing given our fiscal framework, or there is a space?
Look, this is a request that the mayors of the biggest European cities have made. Recently, they formed this alliance of mayors for housing. They encompass some of the most important cities in Europe: Paris, Barcelona, Milan, Rome, Warsaw, Amsterdam. So I met those mayors, and I actually invited them in a hearing in the committee in the parliament, because I thought it is very important for us to give voice to the mayors and the cities, because those are the ones on the first line of defense. Those are the ones that have to respond to the needs. Those are the people that those in needs go to for a solution, but they don't have the tools to provide the solutions. So, and they came, they drafted a plan, which I think is very interesting, with many proposals and ideas. And one of these ideas is to use the fiscal rules, the Growth and Stability Pact rules, just to to carve out the possibility to have an escape clause for housing. I'm putting in a very simple way, but something like this, pretty much in the same way as we just did for defense expenditure. So you know that the European Commission proposed this idea of having an escape clause to the fiscal rules of in the European Union, to allow member states to invest and spend more in military expenditure, in defense-related expenditure. So what the mayors say is that housing, having a roof over your head, is also a safety issue for millions of Europeans. So as we are struggling with that, maybe this is the moment in which we need to give more room, unless the European Union creates a European fund. So the European Union could create a special European fund, as we did for the Next Generation EU, to address this crisis. In that case, I think there wouldn't be the need for derogations to national fiscal rules, because there would be funds at the European level. But since most member states and the Commission don't seem going in this direction, let's say in this way, if you cannot have enough resources and support at the European level, you need to give them a little bit more leeway and flexibility at the national level. And so this is their reasoning. And frankly, I think that it could be a possibility, even though for me the best idea would be a European fund. Moreover, social housing and affordable housing, they are not they could have a sustainability. So a fund could be also designed with a smaller component of grants for those housing stock dedicated to the real fragile ones. And we know that in that case, you need to provide grants. But some of those social housing, those directed more to the middle class, of course, even if they do not maximize profits, but they are sustainable. They have an economic sustainability, so they can repay for the cost. That's what I mean. So you could use these funds to provide loans at zero interest rate, or and these loans could be repaid over time. So those could be loans with long term, like 30, 40, 50 years. And of course, these could be easily repaid, even if the rent to which they are rented out are much lower than the market rental. So I think it would be perfectly sustainable. It wouldn't be a problem for the European budget or anything. I think it would make perfect sense. But I don't know why, and nowadays it seems so difficult to talk about it.
Okay, thanks, Irene. But we have now a representative of the Commission, so we'll try to understand or maybe it's not this. Oops. Yes, thanks a lot, Irene. And now it's a time to give the floor to a representative of the housing task force of the European Commission. Is Tatiana Marquez Uriarte. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for inviting me and for giving the floor to European Commission and the Affordable Housing Task Force. As you put it, I think, Valentina, well, the task force has been created very recently, only in February. And we have already a very clear agenda, which is to come up with a European affordable housing plan by the beginning of next year. I think that on the context and the different problems that we see in housing, both social and affordable housing, Ms. Tinali has already explained this marvelously well. I think what I can add from the Commission point of view, it's a bit the objectives that we have in this in our work. Of course, coming up with a plan, but within that plan, the question is what can the Commission do beyond some type of coordination of member states, given the fact that we do not have a competence in housing. So on that, I would say first that coordination is not something that we should take for granted. On the contrary, what we have seen in the last years, I would say, and particularly since the subprimes crisis, there has been quite a lot of disengagement in some member states and some regions on the issue of social housing. Meaning that for many years, we were considered that, as Ms. Tinali said, this is the real estate market is a market. It gives, provides houses for people who need it. The market works. The prices, well, there has been a bubble at some time, but the prices have been corrected to some extent after the crisis. They have decreased a little bit. Therefore, there's maybe no need of public intervention on it. And on the contrary, what we have seen, especially in the last years after the COVID, is that the economic growth, and as Ms. Tinali said, also the enormous mobility that we have of both Europeans within the EU, but also migrants from outside Europe who come here to basically make their living and also to fill many of the jobs that we have in Europe. It has made that there is a very big demand of houses currently, and the market is providing houses, that's for sure. Less than in the past. We have seen a huge decrease in the number of new houses, new construction in the last years. And the ones that are built are not always built there where it's needed, or with the quality that is needed, or at the prices that people are capable of paying. So if we look at the member state, we see big differences among them. As I said, some of them, they are still very strong in doing social housing and affordable housing. Some others have disengaged themselves a little bit. In some member states, the share of social and affordable housing is around 2% or less of the total building stock. So with such a small amount of social and affordable housing, what can you do when you have a social crisis, a housing crisis? You cannot do much because you simply do not have the tools to address the crisis. So I think that one of the values that the Commission can make in this whole process is also to help the member states, the regions, but also the cities that were already mentioned here, to build these policies, to build serious and robust housing policies, both for the most disadvantaged people, so the social housing, but also for middle classes, because we see that with some other trends like gentrification in some cities, we see that people with an average income, that you wouldn't say that they have solvency problems, they nevertheless are unable to buy a house in the place where they serve the function. Talking about teachers, talking about policemen, talking about social services. These people sometimes, they do not have a house which allows them to live and in the same place where they work. So very, very important, I think, is this coordination to make sure that we have a framework, governance, a structure that help the member states and the regions and cities and whoever has the competence to work together, and also to set benchmarks, to set targets, to be able to track the progress towards providing affordable housing for everyone. Secondly, a part of this coordination that we will try to make, we think that there are, and again, this has been mentioned, many bottlenecks in both EU legislation and national legislation that are sometimes impeding or slowing down the supply of housing at affordable prices. Ms. Dinali has mentioned the stated rules. I think this is something very, very clear. Stated rules have been traditionally written for social housing, so for really people who could not afford any home. And we see, as I explained, that with this new trend that is also affecting middle income classes, it's not enough, the current stated framework that we have, to allow member states to give financial support for affordable housing. So this is one of the first things that we are going to change. The competition service of the Commission, DG Competition, is working to launch in the coming days a public consultation precisely to get feedback from all stakeholders and actors about how to change the existing rules and to extend them, to allow them to allow the different public entities to also finance affordable housing and not social housing. But of course, keeping in mind that social housing still will need to be financed. So making sure that the fact that we allow now to support affordable housing does not go against the interest of the most disfavored people. So this is something that we are going to be working on during this year very, very closely. Another bottleneck that we have is permitting. This is more than at EU level, I would say national level. Very often housing suppliers, they come and basically complain about the lengthy process that they have to fill in from the moment that you classify a plot of land as constructible to the moment where you see the house built. It could happen 10, even more years before that happens. And this is basically not giving a solution to a problem that exists already. So we, without going and completely withdrawing all the necessary safety and environmental standards that are there for something, we have to look at whether there are some steps where we are basically requiring the same thing several times in the process, whether we can skip some of them, whether there are no overlaps in the process where we can gain time. In your reports, in the report of FEBEA, you also mentioned the issue of the prudential rules. I think that the Commission is already looking at it with the modification of the securitization legislation, for instance. So again, whenever we will see that there is any bottleneck, either at European, that's easy for us to address, or at national level, what we will be looking in our action plan is how we fix it, how we can make things easier for the provision of new houses and renovation of existing ones, or repurposing of houses or of buildings that are not houses at the moment. Third thing, apart of coordination and removing of bottlenecks, is what we call additional actions at EU level in flanking policy areas. We do not have competence on housing, but we have competence in many other areas of the EU policy making, which have an influence in housing. For instance, we have legislation on short-term rentals that enter into force in May next year. We are in a discussion now whether these rules are sufficient or whether there are additional things that we could do. Another issue could be construction. We are working on a construction strategy to see to what extent we can come up with prefabricated elements that can speed up again the process of construction of houses and that can at the same time decrease the price of construction. I would like to note that since the COVID crisis, the prices of construction have increased by 25%. So it is really an inflation enormous, both in materials and in services, that we cannot afford. So we have to see how we can decrease the prices of houses without compromising the quality and the safety standards. Another issue that we could build on is financialization. Indeed, and I very much agree with what Tinali said, we need to look at how to detach these two markets in the sense that we can continue allowing those investors who want to invest in real estate that they continue to do so, but making sure that there is protected social and affordable housing building stock available, which is not influenced by what happens in the free market. And to do that, well, one of the things that we are looking at the moment, although these are just first thoughts, is whether we should not increase the transparency about the ownership in the real estate market, or the transfers of property that are being done in the market. Because what we have realized is that although member states have sometimes, not often, and not all the time, property registries of real estate, it's difficult to know who the real owner is, to track down whether the owner is someone who occupies the building, or whether it's someone who builds one house, who owns one house or two or three, or whether the owner is in China or in the US or in Russia. Just transparency, I think it would be one of the things that may help policymakers to improve the way that we address financialization. And finally, the last area where we are very much focusing our work at the moment is financing. It has been very much covered by your reports. You have already mentioned that the European Commission is working towards a pan-European financing platform for housing. We are working with the EIB, but we are working also with national promotional banks, with private banks, with all the investors and financial institutions that are interested in financing the housing sector. And there, what we want to do is really to, I mean, we don't start from in a vacuum. There is a lot of funds already at European level that are being dedicated to housing, different issues of housing, some of them social, some of them social services, some others are more on renovation and energy efficiency improvements. But there is very, very significant amounts of money either in the ESF or the RRF or the cohesion funds. What we need is to make sure that we work differently, we work closer to the social housing providers, and that we can help them also to make the link between the projects that they have on the ground, the existing financing, and also the financing that not only comes from Europe, but also from a private and other institutional investors. So this matching exercise between project and financing, I think, is one of the main objectives that we will have in the platform. And I will stop basically talking there because there are many other speakers that I'm also really looking forward to listening to. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Tatiana. Thanks a lot for your input.
Valentina.
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize. Can I just clarify one thing, interacting with Tatiana? When I said it's important to try to disentangle a little bit these two markets, yes, so this can help us to focus. But frankly, that doesn't mean that we don't take any action on what is happening in the free market, because in any way it will affect all the rest. So, for example, in the free market, this financiarization and this increasing of profitability is increasing the prices of land, for example. So if you want to buy a land to do social housing or affordable housing, if the free market keeps skyrocketing out of control, it will be increasingly impossible, because, and also you will not find builders for the social housing, because these builders will be too busy building for the super profitable market out there. So I think we need to be aware that even if we try to separate these, but they are deeply interconnected. There are cities and mayors that, since they cannot build in few months, but they need to respond to problems quickly, what they try to do is to buy housing on the market to respond to social problems. But if the prices keep skyrocketing like this will be impossible. So I think we also need to look at the market and see what is going on in this market that has making all the prices out of control like that. And so that's why, for example, we think that there could be a better way of regulating short-term rentals, in a way that, after all, until a few years ago, this was a touristic market. It was a different market. There are hotels, there are structures, and they have their own rules, they have their own taxation, they have everything. So maybe we can, if we need more place, more rooms for tourist market, we can think of a affordable tourism market, which does not screw up entirely the real estate market. So I think we need to think in terms of, and also on terms of these real estate trust funds and the profitability that is going on there, some forms of speculation. I think trying to understand what is going on there in this market and trying to introduce a little bit of regulation that can help moderate. Taxation is another big thing. I mean, in a city like Milan, the policy of not golden visas, but like reattracting billionaires from outside the city have attracted many, thousands of super rich people. But the downtown of Milan is very small. The supply of houses is very small. And now the prices have more than doubled in few years. In Milan, in the center, and I'm not talking in the face of the cathedral, the prices are like 20,000 euros per square, 20,000 euros per square meter. Can you believe that? I mean, so, and this is a policy, these are all policies that have nothing to do with real estate, that have to do with different targets, whether it is tourism or whether it is financial or whether, but that have affected the real estate market. So I think it's important also to understand what kind of policies have derailed so much the free market dynamics in the real estate market, because if we can rebalance a little bit, this will also help the supply of affordable housing. Sorry, I mean, I just
Thanks, Irene, for this. Now it's time for FEANTSA. So we have the deputy director. So Ruth, you can, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valentina, and thank you to the previous speakers who I think have already done a very good job of setting out where we are at the EU level on this issue of the housing crisis and the preparations for the affordable housing plan, and who have also, I think, illustrated quite well the tension that exists between housing as a essential good and a human right, and housing as a market and a source of considerable profit and growth in our not so productive economies. So, and I think that tension, we see it in the way that the housing plan is being discussed and developed. It's there in the conversation that we're having now, and it's really critical to grapple with it. And I would like to maybe react to some of the things that have been said. First of all, I would like to contest the idea that disinvestment from the public purse in social housing happened because of the price corrections that happened after the financial crisis. I don't think that's the case. I think they happened because of political choices and also because of a difficult fiscal context in many member states, and also because of austerity measures in many member states. So I think that's an important part of the context that we're dealing with here. FEANTSA is the European Federation of Organizations Working with Homeless People. So we really represent the interests of those people who are most excluded and most disadvantaged on the housing market. They are unfortunately a growing number. Homelessness has increased quite rapidly in most European member states in recent years. And every night in the European Union or in Europe, approximately 1.27 million people are either sleep rough or in accommodation for homeless people. So from my perspective, given the limited competence of the European Union in the area of homelessness, given the challenging context that we're in terms of limited fiscal space, etc., and decades of disinvestment in social housing, I guess I would call for, in agreement with the previous speakers, lots of pragmatism, and also, like, I think we have to define the problem that we're trying to solve and to prioritize, because otherwise we're not going to make any impact. And, you know, I would say that we need to design the affordable housing plan around housing need, which is not the same thing as demand for housing. And of course, homelessness is the extreme end of this. Homelessness is my main concern, but homelessness is the hard edge of a broader problem of housing exclusion. And the thing that we need to understand about that is it's overwhelmingly concentrated in lower income groups. So, like, the housing cost overburden is 30% in the first income quintile, but it falls to 8 in the second and 4 in the third. Similarly, overcrowding is 28% in the first income quintile, 20 in the second and 15 in the third. And, like, therefore, that should dictate the kind of housing products that we're seeking to produce in the framework of the affordable housing plan. We need houses that are the right type, at the right price for the households in housing need. And I think that we're not fully recognizing that in the discussion so far. And I would say that the whole concept of affordable housing is not necessarily helping to make the connection between housing need and housing policy really clear. And that is not because I have an ideological attachment to social housing or traditional social housing in opposition to affordable housing. I just think that housing as an instrument of public policy should seek to address housing need, and that we have noticed in FEANTSA a drift towards the middle income segments in housing policy, and that is often described as affordable housing, but not always. It's also within the social housing sector because of the pressure. Like, we keep hearing this line, and we hear it a lot from the European Investment Bank, that social housing is for the most vulnerable and affordable housing is something else for the middle class and the emerging needs. That's not true. There is no place in Europe where social housing is only for the most vulnerable. It's just not true. And the history of social housing is often really around workers' housing. And so the only definition that we have of social housing at the moment in the European Union is the one in the framework of SGIs and state aid regulation, and that refers to disadvantaged citizens. Disadvantaged citizens are pretty flexible concept, and member states have the absolute liberty as it stands today to define who disadvantaged citizens are, and in most cases that would include people like key workers. So I would say France is a perfect example of an absolutely brilliant application of the current rules to provide state aid to a very broadly targeted social housing sector. And so I'm not saying there's no issue with state aid. I think it is extremely burdensome and challenging for member states to meet the Altmark criteria and to prove that they meet the Altmark criteria, and especially in member states with a less developed institutional framework around social housing, for understandable reasons, they're quite risk averse when it comes to applying the rules. But it's not the definition of the target group that is the problem. And I think that the push to introduce affordable housing as a new product in competition kind of with social housing is really a push to cash in on a profitable market segment in a situation where fewer and fewer middle-class households can afford home ownership. And I just don't know that that is the core priority of housing policy. And I'm not interested in discussion about is it affordable, is it social. I think the reality is those terms are already used to describe really quite different things in different European member states. I'm originally from the UK. In the UK, affordable housing was introduced as a kind of new product because the capital funding was turned off for social housing, and it is defined as 80% of the market rent. Well, I can tell you that in a city like London or Liverpool, if you're homeless and not have a minimum income, but even if you're just a worker in a low-paid job or even a middle income, 80% of the market rent is totally irrelevant to you. So I really think that that is crucial, that we have to design a plan that is around housing needs. What are the problems that we are trying to solve? And I think the problems we should be trying to solve are things like homelessness, overcrowding, inadequate housing, and insecure housing. And you can build all the affordable housing you want, but if you're not building products that respond to those problems, then I would agree with Ms. Nagli's remarks that you're wasting money. And also probably quite a lot of money is being made somewhere. So how do we design housing policies that respond to housing needs? I think you have to have rents that are based on income. You have to have housing that is permanently affordable. You have to recognize that some people need support as well as housing, and there are lots of proven models about how to deliver those things together. So in the area of homelessness, the housing first model is very kind of evidence-based intervention, where homeless people are provided with rapid access to housing with support. And I think you have to accept that housing people without much money requires some public subsidy somewhere. And from the projects that we've looked at in the context of InvestEU, it can be between 20 and 60% subsidy, but it has to come from somewhere. And then I would say it's definitely not all about supply. Most people live in the private housing sector. Most poor people live in the private housing sector. And if you don't regulate that market to make it work, to deliver housing outcomes, you'll never get there, no matter how much you invest in the social housing sector. And some of the EU member states with the biggest social housing sectors, to make the system work, you still have to intervene in the market. We need to regulate the financial ecosystem and the fiscal ecosystem in which these policies are developed. And I'm a bit skeptical that revamping the securitization market in the European Union is a good idea. And yeah, also not everything is about rebuild and about new build. We already have a lot of houses in the European Union, so I think we need to look at, well, certainly vacant stock, but also kind of distributional issues. So yeah, maybe just to summarize, I would say that my main message is that the affordable housing plan should be designed around housing need, and also that where the EU budget is mobilized to support investments, they should be very much investments in either public, non-profit, limited profit housing that's regulated, that will provide genuinely affordable housing for people who need it, and over the long term as well. I think we have to be really careful that we're not overly focused on mobilizing the EU budget to leverage private finance. Like there's a role for that, but as I said earlier, if you want to house people who really need it, you need a subsidy element. And I think in terms of the investment platform, I hope that part of the investment platform will be focused on, I don't know what to call it, Canadians call it deeply affordable housing or very social housing. And I think that ethical banks and financiers can definitely play a role there. And we have lots of experience with small projects, but it is a challenge to reach scale, and the issues that were mentioned around low liquidity are genuine challenges, but hopefully then that's where aggregation can be helpful. So I'll stop there, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruth. Your message was really clear. Thanks a lot. And now it's time for Cooperatives Europe. We have Mathilde. I have to say that there is also a strong relationship between ethical finance provider and cooperative movement. So we are really also happy that Cooperative Europe is here to share their inputs about housing.
Thank you, Valentina. Hello, everyone. My name is Mathilde Leby, and I'm the Advocacy Officer at Cooperatives Europe, which is the European federation representing cooperatives in Europe, cooperatives from all sectors, so including housing. I'm very happy to be here. I really feel in the discussions a tension between the need for affordability, the topic of profitability, and the need to just provide homes and dwelling fast to people who are disadvantaged people, and including obviously homelessness. I also heard, and I really like the idea to be pragmatic. And many of the speakers said it because the EU does not technically have competence per se on that sector. And my take on this and how to be pragmatic is, let's not reinvent the wheel. There are models that are hitting the right balance. I'm obviously here to speak about cooperative housing. They will not suffice alone. But these are solutions that need to be scaled up and that need to be developed. I just want to brush over the cooperative housing. The DNA of the cooperative housing is the collective ownership and democratic governance, and also the reinvestment of profits. We talked about profitability and how it's also feeding into the speculative market and making the price skyrocket as well. Cooperatives and cooperative housing, they have to reinvest the profit. It takes different shapes and form across member states, but this is what makes them more sustainable and non-speculative. They're not distributed to shareholders, but they're reinvested in the activity, in the club, in sometimes their own fund, which makes them able to fight off this speculative prices or skyrocketing and getting out of control, and help them maintain affordable prices. In a similar way, the other part of the DNA is the collective ownership and democratic governance, which empowers citizens and make them involved in the housing policies and in the management of the housing to an extent that is never the case, or it is rarely seen. Members have a say in the management of the cooperative, from financial matters to renovation as well. Community spaces, it really is a format that is replicable, where citizens are the main players, and it makes housing something more accessible. Because housing is not accessible, and we've seen that it's getting even less accessible to the middle classes. So if it's not accessible to middle classes, it is even less to the rest of the population, especially for these who are usually excluded. So I'm talking about low economic background, the young, elderly, the migrant, homeless. So the element of the cooperative housing of that is really important, the non-speculative and the empowerment of the people. And so I just wanted to highlight a little bit that and how this model is a model that is particularly successful, but it's also a model that is facing a lot of challenges. And one of the challenge, like we've heard already many of these challenges here, but I wanted to highlight a little bit their particular barriers. The main thing for cooperatives, because the goal is to allow them to develop to their full potential and to provide affordable housing to the maximum amount of people, to allow them to have a say in their housing. But to do so, we need a legal framework that is working towards recognition of cooperatives. This is still not the case. We have a very fragmented recognition of cooperative housing in Europe. Co-ops, they are present in many member states, like housing cooperatives, but they're not necessarily recognized as a legitimate actor in the housing sector capable of delivering the social and affordable housing. So yes, this is a very unequal recognition of that model. There's a lack of understanding and awareness of this model, both by public authorities, but also by traditional financial institutions. The wider public do not necessarily understand what a cooperative is, how it works, the governance, the reinvestment of the profit. And this impacts their access to finance. I am not going to repeat some of the things that Anna and Valentina have said, but about the liquidity, but the lack of knowledge of cooperative makes them unlikely to get access to finance, or it's more difficult. They're considered risky, but it's a patient capital model, and their complicated governance makes them unattractive. And for that reason, and this is what you were saying, Valentina, housing cooperatives often turn to ethical banks, social economy financiers, and they're really like allies in that cases, but also there's a limitation to how much these ethical finance actors can provide and cover the enormous investment needs. So what we need in what we're advocating is both like action in the legal framework recognition and the access to finance. We need better recognition and enabling legal framework that allows cooperatives to really develop. And once again, let's not reinvent the wheel. We have tools that were designed, and I'm talking about the Social Economy Action Plan, for example, and the Council recommendation for framework condition for social economy. These are tools that are getting revised also. There's a midterm review that are coming up this year. Affordable and sustainable and social housing are a complete part also of social economy, and democratic and community-led housing models are part of this. So we need strong political support for the social economy, and we need social economy to be a leverage for the housing sector, the affordable and social housing sector. A lot will happen soon. The House report, the EU Affordable Housing Plan. There need to be synergies with the social economy if we want to make everything work. Yes, work, essentially. And the last point is about access to finance. We've talked a lot about it, and there's different, we can do different things at different scales and different levels, because cooperative housing are financed by a lot of like social economy financiers and ethical banks and ethical finance actors, there's indeed a need to support this organization in terms of liquidity. This is what you said, Valentina. For traditional financial institutions, we need awareness raising and we need to improve the loan condition with low interest rates, which has been said here. But there's a need to allow cooperative housing to get access to the amount they need, whether it is for building new or just simply renovation. We've seen with the green transition and the renovation wave, this is very important. And now for public authorities, I feel like I repeat myself, but indeed that we need subsidies. As you said, Ruth, there's need subsidies and support schemes. And we need also, I want to highlight, we need the direct involvement of community in shaping the housing policies at local level, including where the money goes. So that is for public authorities. And for the EU, obviously, the investment need is huge. The MFF, the multi-annual financial framework, is coming up. The new one, negotiations we're in the middle of it. So we need stronger investment for affordable and sustainable housing that cooperative housing need to access at regional level. And with the, it's not just creating homes. It's not just giving homes to people. It is also to make them decent, to make them energy efficient. I think there's also, we need to create special earmarks in the social climate fund, cohesion policy, the transition fund. There's a lot of funds nowadays, so we need to make sure that the money is particularly targeted. So yeah, I could go more into also the EU semester, the need for data. I think I'm speaking already a bit too long, but yes, the keyword is let's be pragmatic. There are certain models that are working. Cooperative housing is one of them, and they respond to the need for affordability, non-speculative, and democratic access to housing. So let's make them let's make this model scale up and working through the member states. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
And sorry, I've been very long, Valentina.
Don't worry. I know that we're running a bit late, and sorry, Marion, now she will kill me. But I think that it was really important to also have the time to discuss, to share insights about this quite crucial topic. Now we open now the floor for some question insights from audience, but of course we don't have a lot of time, so we are able to maybe to respond like a couple. You can use the chat, or also you can take the floor if the audience of course want to say something.
Valentina, there seems to be no question. Maybe we can raise the issue shared by Nicolas in the chat on the European Social Housing Evergreen Fund of Funds.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so I cannot find okay. Maybe I don't know, Nicolas, if you want to explain a little bit this European
I can explain. Thank you. I am going to have a presentation, and I would have completely changed it after hearing this, because there is a lot of inspiring insights and a lot of solutions coming, or some proposals. But this European Evergreen Housing Fund of Funds, it meant that that could be some specialized fund that would be not that institutional than like public authorities, but would be focused on to solve the solutions as what we mentioned, that like the sustainability and long-term finance, and also these acquisition of the land and so on. So this is a question about some specialized fund or funds that would be dedicated for these kind of purposes. It will be developed according to these demands or needs, and would be like given to under management of professionals that are like focusing on ethically focusing on financing of such projects like FEBEA and so on.
Thanks a lot, Nicholas, for these insights. I want also to I see now the comment of Ruth about what is happening now to social economy, and yes, of course, FEBEA and Cooperative Europe and social economy networks and a lot of all networks in social economy. We are really worried and concerned about what is happening to social economy, and this year there is the review of the Social Economy Action Plan, and of course there is also the discussion about the multi-annual financial framework. What we are doing to try to demonstrate that social economy is there, can contribute, can make the difference, and can also improve the competitiveness of the European Union. There is not a contradiction in investing in social economy and in competitiveness, and we are trying also to secure funding for InvestEU. As you said, we don't have good news about the social windows about InvestEU. The reality is this, but the network in the social economy, we are trying to share also the data that we have, that it's not a good political choice to stop to support and fund social economy. So thanks, Ruth, for this input about what is happening in social economy. So if we don't have any remarks inside, okay, yes, there is one. Go.
Yes, hello. Thanks for this useful webinar. I suppose you were going to give me the floor. Yes. Yeah, I think it was very, very interesting. Maybe one aspect, one of the sub-markets that we have not really touched too much is perhaps also maybe the most obvious one is the private home ownership market, and basically mortgages, which mainly finance private home ownership. I think on that respect, the basic issue is that banks only lend to people who can pay back, right? And so, in other words, the banking loans will always, they will always be biased towards who can borrow. And in another way, debt for the poor people is a burden, but for the rich, being able to borrow money from banks is actually a leverage. It allows you to capture more properties on the market and therefore crowd out the stock for the rest. So I wonder on that side of things, obviously this maybe has more to do towards banking regulation and even perhaps central banking, because in a way we have a one-size-fits-all monetary policy with one interest rate, and therefore this does not allow any differentiation. So in a way we would need some mechanisms to compensate for that bias. So yeah, I wonder if any speakers have any thoughts on that. Thank you.
I was actually writing that I have to leave because I have another meeting at 11:30. But this is a question you were, if I got it correctly, a mechanism to correct for the monetary policy.
No, not necessarily for monetary policy. I'm an expert in monetary policy myself, so I could have gone in that direction. But I'm very open-minded on whatever angle you want to tackle it. But the fact that the banking sector is structurally helping the richer to accumulate more properties on the market, for me, is the main concern. And so how to avoid that situation.
Okay, the banking sector is not helping the rich people. The banking sector is lending the money to those who want to buy a property or to build something, and so I don't think that they do it on purpose to advantage someone because it's rich to become richer. The banking sector has prudential requirements, as you know, and these prudential requirements have been created to protect citizens and savers from potential banking failures. So banking sector now has these very strict rules also that look into who they can lend the money to, because those have to be able to repay. And they riskier the money, I mean, the investment for the bank, and the more money they have to put aside. These are the prudential rules that have been created to protect the stability of our financial system and eventually of our citizens. So I don't think that we can change that easily without introducing risks in the financial system that can eventually actually affect negatively the most fragile ones, because when banks fail, those that are most exposed are those that have fewer means to have alternative investments or alternative assets. What we can do is to provide for guarantees, like using public funds. This is like the mechanism that we are using in InvestEU, for example. So we provide public guarantees to de-risk those investments and facilitate and encourage banks to take on more risks on paper, and to finance projects on social housing that are apparently could be potentially riskier than a high-end luxury flat that can be sold in 2 minutes and you can see your investments repaid very easily. And this is what we are also trying to do, as I said, by trying to protect instruments like InvestEU. I was negotiating InvestEU, and I was fighting very much to have the social infrastructure window. And I can guarantee you that we will be fighting to keep it. And similarly, now we are renegotiating InvestEU. Sorry, someone entered my apartment. Sorry. Yeah. Hello. Okay. That's fine. Okay. So,
okay. Okay.
Everything's okay, under control. And so this is, I think, what we can do. So trying to create instruments that allow certain actors to access finance and not to be discriminated upon. But I think it would be difficult to change banking regulation, prudential regulation. Another thing that we did, for example, when we negotiated, I'm always a little bit cautious when I hear, as I heard earlier, that we are going through new securitization rules to speed up projects, because we know that securitization has some, collateral effects. And so when we negotiated the NPL directive, we tried to include a lot of safeguards, especially for protecting primary residence homes from evictions, and also to oblige banks to propose and try forborne measures before selling the credit to someone else, to a credit servicer. So trying to put as many safeguards as possible to make sure that this market, although I know it is useful to release more capital to finance more projects, but we also need to protect those people that could be in a time of difficult economic situation, and they temporarily cannot pay, but could go back paying very soon. So I think that we need to find a balance, between the needs of prudential regulation, financial stability, or functioning of the market, but at the same time protecting the rights and the needs and providing access to finance to those that are pursuing projects that have a social impact and social interest. And then hopefully one other thing that we could do at the European level is to finally have something that resembles the taxonomy for the social investments, because this could create a whole new market for social bonds, social impact finance, and I'm sure that these could be very beneficial to the whole system. So we are trying to push for that, what we've been trying for years, but I know it's very difficult, but I think this could also be a good instrument. Now I'm very late for my next, so I apologize. I hope I gave some answers. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Irene. Thanks. I want just to also to add something about the question of Stanislas. It's true when you talk about the banking system, and thanks for also sharing this paper. And as FEBEA, we're representing, like an alternative way to do banking and finance. Like what I can see also, because I know my members, I know some also initiative that a lot of our members, for example, because of their cooperatives, they decide to take part of the profits as you are not sharing the profits. So you invest the profits in your organization, but use that profits for example, decreasing the interest rates, especially in the last year. So as you can see also in the banking system, you can see difference. You can see banks that maybe are more oriented to profits, to increase the share for their shareholders. And then you have other banks that are really trying also to survive a little bit, because the banking regulation, the banking framework, it's not easy. And we have just one model for all typology of banking models. So what I say that there are other banks that are really trying to, despite the rules, despite the law, despite, the prudential framework, they are trying to also to provide a mortgage for people that maybe they don't have the right rating, because now you have to have the right rating for having a mortgage. So what I want to say that there are in the market, in the banking system, other actors that maybe are applying different logics, even if the rules at the end are not easy, especially for those actors that try to do the things in a different way. Yes, Nicolas?
Maybe I have only one observation on this, that we were mentioning that housing is a commodity and housing is a social good, but we are not mentioning housing is a service. It means the whole area of rental housing, that we don't need to talk about these mortgages, and then we can talk about the price of this basic price of the housing, and then from other side the subsidies that go from different needs for the social services, and that's maybe could be the solution, and the combination of those two to go over these mortgages story and so on, because you have a different life cycle. Everyone has different stages of life and different needs, so would be more beneficial to be flexible in changing these housing services.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I don't know, Marion, do you think that maybe we should have 5 minutes breaks, or maybe we can just start as we are really late with the second part of the workshop?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. That I'm sorry, but that we skip the break because we are a bit late, and we still have very interesting speakers from FEBEA to present, their experience and good practice in financing social housing. So I would propose that we go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marion, I would propose that we go on with the example of FBOOM.
Okay.
Yeah, if John is ready, and that could share his presentation. And then it will be followed up by 2 other FEBEA members, Good Practice in Social Housing, the Fondazione Messina, and Social Innovatory. Nicolas will spoke already. So John, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for the very interesting introduction. I will try to keep it really brief since we're a little bit short on time. I have, of course, always a very elaborate presentation, but that's not the purpose of today. So I'll give a brief few slides, but I'll go through them quickly. And Valentina, don't hesitate to intervene if it takes too long. So, yeah. So briefly, an introduction to our organization. I'll not go through that too long. Don't know if the slides are visible in a correct sense.
Yes, they are, John, just not in a presenter mode. So if it's
okay,
yeah, perfect.
Do it like this. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So who's FBOM? Really briefly, we're a cooperative founded in 1985, and we're active in the field of social and sustainable economy organizations and initiatives. As such, we're active in the northern part of Belgium, Flanders, as well as Brussels, together with our sister organization active in Wallonia, that is Credal. We have about 1,200 shareholders, and we are actually focusing on enabling inclusive work, housing, and life through social entrepreneurship. So that's our main mission. We try to promote that through participatory financing, of course, as a cooperative, as well as through cooperation between sectors and promoting innovative organizational models. And we'll come to that a little bit later as well. Lots of data, but I won't bother you with that. I think I told a few things about that already. We're a small organization. That's maybe also important. We have about 18 million euros in equity and quasi-equity. That's not a lot, on the contrary, but we try to focus on supporting small and medium scale organizations. And so the amount of money we have at our disposal to support organizations is not the essence. The essence that we try to support organizations that have difficulties starting up or growing and are not or less supported through the regular financing system. So the key is here, we try to support and foster and nurture organizations that have difficulties obtaining, for instance, regular banking finance. So that's our main objective there. That's a little bit of data of our organization, but that's maybe less important. We're called FBOM, which is in English is translated as leverage. It means we have about 18 million euros of capital, but we finance about 36 million euros to organizations. That's mainly because we leverage that through co-financing by government institutions as well as private partners who offer co-financing where possible. We offer regular financial products like a bank. We're not a bank, so we're a financial institution that's regulated by Belgian law, but not as a bank. So that's important. Why? Because it allows us to be flexible and operate in a way that is often more difficult for a bank, meaning that we can look at customized solutions, and what's really important for us, that we offer that through a system which is called as an impact first financier. And impact first means that we focus mainly and primarily on the societal benefits that organizations provide, and financial gain is secondary. It means that we, of course, look to finance organizations that can operate in a sustainable way and generate profits where possible, moderate profits by preference, so they reinvest in the societal goals. On the other hand, what's really key there is that we offer moderate returns as well as an organization. Now, focus on the main topic of today, the housing market in Belgium. I think it's relatively similar to other countries in Europe in the sense that, of course, we see rising housing prices and building costs moving up at an alarming rate, which makes it very difficult to construct or renovate at a qualitative level. And also, without sufficient incentives, it's also very difficult to go towards what I would call sustainable renovation and housing. So focus on energy-friendly construction materials and methods. It's of course very important, but it's also very expensive, which leads to the difficulty that a lot of people do not have the means or not the sufficient means to renovate their house or construct a house according to the highest building standards. Now, social housing in Belgium, it is a very large sector now, focusing on the northern region, Flanders, for instance. It's a region with approximately 6 million inhabitants. It has about 180,000 units offered by government or through government agencies for social housing. But there's a waiting list, which is about the same amount of people. So there's 170 families waiting for social housing. That is government offered. So they are forced to look towards the private market. Now, the situation is not entirely dire in the sense that the private market does offer affordable housing, but it becomes increasingly difficult to obtain that type of housing in Belgium and in Flanders. So the segment we're focusing on, it's the first and second quintile, meaning people who are below average incomes looking for housing. Now that segment is under threat to an increasing amount, in the sense that the legal and fiscal framework is not conducive to private as well as private-public systems that offer affordable housing. They're, I would say, treated at the same level as private housing that caters for the purely private market and the more upscale housing developments. So, as mentioned in some of the statements this morning, we see that more and more of the efforts go towards more expensive housing and less towards Q1 and Q2 centered housing. We see steeply rising rental costs. They're up to 900 euros a month. They used to be up to 700 euros approximately 5 years ago. They were increasing enormously above indexation rates. Average housing prices are high. They're going up towards 350,000 euros for a regular house, on average 270,000 for an apartment. Put that towards an average disposable income, which is approximately 2,500 euros for an average family, which means that it becomes increasingly difficult to rent. If you have a disposable income where you spend at maximum 1/3 of your disposable income to rent, it becomes difficult for an average family to find good housing, let alone qualitative housing. So that is a big issue, and there is an estimate that approximately 25% of families in Belgium has difficulties affording quality housing, either through rent or through purchase. Purchase is becoming even more difficult, and there is an increasing demand for that Q1 and Q2 income housing. It can be addressed by private market, not only by private markets. Of course, the public market is there, and the government is accelerating efforts towards social housing. There is funding available, but the housing companies are very slow to deliver that affordable housing. Our target as an organization is to finance and to support organizations that are looking for innovative models to support that affordable and social housing. Now, I have one example just to show you. That's Woonkoop. Woonkoop is an organization that we support since 3 years. It's an organization that started in 2017, focusing on affordable housing through a cooperative model. It means that you do not purchase a house, but you become a cooperative member, and the cooperative purchases collective housing, which means that you have private elements in housing projects as well as communal elements in a project. You become shareholder and you pay costs for living. They focus on Q1, Q2, and Q3 quintile incomes, which means that they focus on average incomes as well as below average income. So affordable housing as well as social housing. They want to scale up to 1,000 units. That's quite ambitious, since they have about 130 units at this moment, although they are increasing quite rapidly and developing quite rapidly at approximately 2,000 cooperative members who support the organization. So they're looking to increase their operations. We've been there more or less in the beginning phase, so HEFBOM supports them with the loan as well as with some equity. They've developed quite a few interesting projects. Won't go into detail, but some examples, for instance, in Antwerp, 27 units, approximate value of the apartments is between 300 to 350,000 euros. And that's especially important, the costs that are offered for people who become a member is between 600 to 850 euros without subsidy. It can also be amended or supported through loan subsidies from government. So people with low incomes, Q1 especially, can even get up to 20% loan subsidies. So it becomes increasingly interesting. Barrier to entry might be the fact that you have to become a cooperative member. And on average, they expect you to build up a capital that is approximately 10% of the housing value of the house you will inhabit, which means that you have to build it up through time. But there is substantial amending mechanisms in the cooperative to do so. Second example, similarly in Ghent, 24 units, similar with a slightly lower cost of living, also because the region itself is slightly less costly, but also important. And the reason why I wanted to show these projects is that they offer quality housing. And so it's not that social housing has to be ugly housing or has to be non-well-developed housing. It has to be attractive as well. It has to offer a mix towards different types of families. So families, people living alone. So they offer and cater for that type of project. Now, what is important and the challenges that Woonkoop is facing, and I won't go into financial data, I don't think that's too important, is that even though they're quite successful at developing new projects, and they have about 15 to 20 new projects in development for the coming 5 years, is that banks are becoming hesitant or are hesitant to offer lending or offer loans to such an organization, even though this is an organization that has already scaled up quite significantly. Why is that? Well, mainly it's a cooperative setup, and they see the mortgage structure as something very difficult to organize. There is a high lending proportion in their financing, and so they have approximately half of their, or less than half, approximately 40% of their means come through capital, but the rest comes through lending. So that can be quite a big issue. And thirdly, also important, they're still in their investment phase and they do not realize profit at this moment. It's not in the planning, but financiers see that as a difficulty and a potential risk as well. And additionally, they have limited liquidity. It is housing that they finance, even though it's quite often renovation. You do have to purchase, you do have to offer the money up front to finance such buildings. So it's quite expensive, and it's very cash intensive. They're also a low yield investment. They propose about a 2% annual return in the future once they are up and running and in a current ongoing, or how would I say, in a mature phase. They will offer about 2% annual return in dividends, but they're not there yet, which also makes it difficult if you have to get banking finance in a situation where banking loans are at the low rates. It is easy to come to an average model that offers 2% yield, but if interest rates for banks are really high, it means that you have to sacrifice returns towards your cooperative members. So it becomes more and more difficult to offer dividends. So they're currently looking for additional funding, and of course, we are looking with them for additional funding. Now, FEBEA as itself is a small organization. Per project, we offer loans up to maybe 1.5 million euros per project. So we limit our exposure to one specific organization, and that's necessary, of course. But we do feel a need to increase funding for affordable housing. Now, Woonkoop is not the only project we finance. In the last 5 years, we financed approximately 10 and even more than 10 innovative social and affordable housing projects. And we see that the demand is high, and that even though we're in addition to banking finance, or maybe a step up towards banking finance, we do still see that the need for additional funding is there. So our goal is to step up our involvement in the market as well, and we're looking to set up a fund that is specifically designated towards affordable and social housing, as well as housing for the homeless. So those 3 elements, and I think FEANTSA mentioned it, very important as well, that we don't leave out housing first. So first, non-institutionalized housing for people who are in situations of homelessness. There's quite a few projects to finance. What are our difficulties? Well, of course, setting up a fund and generating funds to finance that is possible, but quite often it's the cost of capital that is a difficulty. And there we come to the main topic we always address. How can you do that if what you need to set up such a fund is approximately, it's maybe a shortcut, but you need below market rate funding. So approximately 100 basis points below market rates is necessary to be able to offer loans to those organizations which are at market rates or even below. It's not useful to offer funding to these organizations if it's above market rates, so that's not feasible. So we need to be below market rates. Now, our operating costs are low, but they're still there. And our financiers, capital or other financiers, also need to make a sacrifice. And so there we're looking for that patient capital that is willing to look at the social benefits and trade it off towards financial benefits. We're looking at government as well, but as everywhere, governments are de-investing, so interest rate subsidies are difficult to find. But we're hopeful that we're able to set up a private fund, maybe private-public fund, to try to fund these organizations in the coming 5 years. So that's a very brief introduction to that.
Super, thanks, Jones. Really, super thanks. Super interesting, also inspiring case, as Ruth wrote in the chat. And good luck for these funds. Of course, FEBEA is with you, and if we can support, of course. And now it's time to listen another members of FEBEA, Fondazione Messina. We have Giuseppe there. So Giuseppe's floor is yours. Thanks.
I can replace the current share, I suppose, because okay, I'll go like this. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giuseppe D'Avella, and it is a real pleasure to be here today on behalf of Fondazione Messina. Let me start, please, with the broader context of our activities. We are based in Sicily. and our region stands at the frontier of some of the global most urgent challenges. More than 70% of our territory is at risk of desertification. At the same time, Sicily is classified among the EU less developed regions, and it is also a major crossroads for migration flows across the Mediterranean. These deep inequalities that we observe in Sicily are not unique to Sicily. They actually reflect global patterns, and this is why our region holds potential as a testing ground. It is a place to pilot response to climate and social challenges. The Messina Foundation is a community foundation created in 2010 in the city of Messina in Sicily to promote social justice and sustainable economic and human development by designing, experimenting, and promoting new socioeconomic policies in marginalized communities. I know that we are late, but I cannot jump off this part because the foundation traces its origins in the 90s, during and after the so-called Sicilian Spring. That was a powerful wave of civic activism that emerged in response to the mafia terrorist attacks which killed the judges Falcone and Borsellino and many other people in Sicily. And today it marks exactly 33 years since the murder of Judge Giovanni Falcone, May 23rd, 1992. As it will be clear from now on, the foundation is not born alone. It is born as a coordinating body of an already existing group of social economy actors. Our work is deeply inspired by Amartya Sen capability approach and complexity theory. This in practice means that we try to empower communities to imagine and build a shared vision of the future. It means helping them unlock their potential by organizing local and external resources in new and creative ways. At the foundation, we strongly believe that incremental reforms are no longer enough. The crisis we face today demands something more profound, a true systemic shift in how we conceive economic and welfare models. What we need is a metamorphosis, that is a rethinking of our economic, technological, and environmental frameworks. And we believe also that this transformation must begin in the very places where global disruption meets local resilience. So, if poverty and territorial development are complex and multidimensional, our responses must reflect this complexity. This is why today the foundation operates across several areas in Sicily, leading a cluster of social and ecological innovation officially recognized by the European Commission. This cluster works to tackle inequality and exclusion through an ecosystemic approach. To do so, it brings together a wide network of actors, social enterprises, cooperatives, and other organizations active in sectors like sustainable housing, ethical finance, education, energy, and ecological transition. The cluster also includes universities, local authorities, and international partners. Let me now show how our approach takes shape in practice through a program called Capacity, very much focused on social housing. For over a century, more than 1,000 families in Messina lived in shanty towns. These settlements were originally built after the 1908 earthquake. They are just 3 kilometers from the city center, but despite this proximity, the gap between this area and the rest of the city is dramatic. We are talking about a poverty trap. People are caught in conditions so difficult that their energy is consumed by survival. Change is not a perspective for them, and poverty here is multidimensional. life expectancy in the area is 5 to 7 years lower than the city average, and average wealth is 6 times lower. Capacity received around 18 million euros from the Italian government extraordinary program for urban regeneration. Additionally, the foundation led a fundraising campaign that secured 1.6 million in co-financing through partnership with key organizations, including Fondazione Con il Sud and Fondazione Clariplo, Impresa Sociale con i Bambini, Caritas Italiana, and Enel Foundation. Cluster organizations supported the project with their own resources. What Capacity has been to accomplish? It put our ecosystemic approach into action. The program responded to the full complexity of the situation by connecting housing, work, educational, and social inclusion into one coherent strategy. So far, Capacity has successfully relocated 205 families from the shanty towns, and the program is continuing to support their integration into new homes, while also tackling educational and energy poverty, thus trying to ensure that change is both structural and sustainable. In total, the program has regenerated 24,000 square meters of land, and today this space includes 6 green-built housing units, hosting individuals who were formerly detained in a judicial psychiatric hospital. This space hosts as well a public park, a library, and a nursery. In this slide, we try to describe the Capacity approach focusing on the housing sector. At our right, we see the new opportunity on housing created for our beneficiaries, for each family. Capacity offered them 2 possible alternatives. The first is the classic one. The municipality of Messina purchased homes on the private market and assigned them to the beneficiaries. In this case, the municipality retains ownership, and 136 families opted for this option. The second option provides a more autonomous path to home ownership. The foundation offered a grant that covers up to 75% of the purchase price of a home on the private market, with a maximum of 80,000 euros. To cover the remaining amount, families can have access to microloans offered by our microcredit institution, the MEC, and by Banca Etica. So far, 69 families have chosen to buy the house, and 52 of them have received support through our microfinance tool. Microfinance plays a crucial role here because it enables families to complete the purchase of the home, something that would otherwise be out of reach for them, as most of them are excluded from the traditional banking system. Importantly, we have also introduced a legality pact with our beneficiaries. In the purchase agreement, they commit to a clause stating that should they be convicted of a mafia-related crime, they would lose ownership of the house. At point 3, on the bottom of the slide, we talk about social support services, because these are people coming from a vulnerable situation. Our social support team works side by side with each family. We help them understand their options, assess their ability to afford such a change in their life as buying a new house, and make an informed decision. This right to make a choice on such a fundamental dimension of life has actually facilitated a change of mental attitude in Capacity's beneficiaries. It has reactivated their ability to dream of a better future and their positive behavior in achieving it. This support, this social support, is what makes the other 2 components truly effective. It's the combination of these 3 elements, opportunities, capital, and tailored support, that allows this model to be effective. As already said, today 205 families, around 600 people, are left the slums of Messina and regain the right to housing. The shanty towns, the transformation of shanty towns goes beyond housing. This public space has become an hub for sustainable living and environmental innovation. As I already said, the 6 new housing units were constructed using green building technology, and the area now serves as a demonstration site for 2 Horizon 2020 research projects testing models of renewable energy communities. What's truly innovative in this is the algorithm they use. The energy communities take into account social fragility factors like income and health status to ensure that energy is shared fairly within the community. To conclude, this final slide includes some key references for those who would like to explore the capacity program in more depth, our impact evaluation, and some international publication that analyze the program approach. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Giuseppe, and thanks for sharing this really innovative approach and with a lot of connection, and thanks, really inspiring. And now it's time for our last member. It's Socially Innovatori. I don't know if who is going to present.
Nicolas is going to present. Yeah,
so,
Nicolas
okay.
Frederic.
Okay. Go. Nicolas. Maybe.
Nicolas, if you have an issue with sharing the PowerPoint, I can.
I'm trying to share
it.
but... Okay, desktop. Share here. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
If you can, display it in the presenter mode, but otherwise it's fine.
I would like to. Okay, maybe this one. Oh, great. So can you see it properly?
It's perfect. Thank you.
So thank you very much for inviting us for this inspiring conference or workshop. So our name is, we are socially innovatori, we are cooperative, and sometimes we used to call ourselves as an artistic group that is bringing more impact and aesthetics to the finance. So this is our team. We, Zuzana, myself, and Vlasta. So myself and 2 ladies. We are our background is we are financials that started our mission in late 90s, the last millennium. And then we realized that we've been in the impact from the early beginning because we've been in the venture capital funds that are focusing on investing in the small and medium enterprises. And at that time, there were almost no small and medium enterprises. So it was an impact at the time. As the time goes on, we move to the impact sector. And since 2012, we started to focus on the social impact projects. And this is our focus, and I will explain our mission. So we are trying to firstly democratize access to the capital, because this sector needs a lot of skills and capital. Bringing professionals to the impact sectors. So during our mission, we brought more than 30 professionals, full-time professionals to the sector, thanks to the money we raised, and also we are managing a 20 million euro fund. As you can see that we already invested. And we also are increasing the number, or we are creating or helping to create a social impact ecosystem and infrastructure. And we already invested into more than 45 transactions in social impact in Slovakia. Whom we are working for, we are working with different groups of stakeholders in the system, but it's very necessary that these activities are coordinating among these groups. So there are entrepreneurs, NGOs, municipalities, and public authorities, and then financial sector. And sometimes we feel that we are not talking to different sectors, but even different planets. So we are acting as interpreters between these sectors and putting all these capacities and all these resources together to come to some solutions. So this is our approach, long-term approach. As we started in 2012, we were meeting or we were having the projects in around 10,000 or low 100,000 of euro on the table. And now we are meeting, or we are discussing or managing the project more than 10 million euro. And so we started with the audit and mapping of the ecosystem, trying to do some networking system integration. And now we are in the phases of pilot projects we will present later, that could be scalable on a larger scale, and then we could come into the social impact bonds and developing some new financial instruments that will really help the scaling of the projects. So I will go through some case studies or deals we done before we raise the funds, and then we go to our fund strategy. First of all, this was like our breakthrough project. We helped the culture community that was kicked out from one brownfield by developer that wanted to do their commercial development. They were kicked out as there was community of 60 organizations focusing or acting in a creative and cultural industry that are kicked out, and they had to find a new premises where they could continue in their activities. And that time we were in cooperation with ethical bank FEANTSA from Poland, and we helped them to finance, to get the access to the real estate that could not be pledged in favor of the banks. And we helped to reinitiate this activity. This case study became as a official case study also on the EVPA, European Venture Philanthropy Association. You can see the link below. So it was quite a success, and after that we didn't need to explain to anyone what are we doing, because it was very difficult to explain what we are doing. So another quite benchmark story was and we helped to this association for mentally handicapped people to co-finance the reconstruction of the old premises. There is the pension, the hotel, restaurant, laundry services, and a community center. Also, the community received a large subsidy, but were not able to finish the reconstruction because lack of money. So we helped with in cooperation with FEANTSA to bring the money there and create such safe premises for the community. So these are our revitalization project that we done with self-governing regions administration, because there is a lot of abandoned real estate that is not properly managed, that is degrading and so on. So we helped with revitalization of a building of a formal secondary school for minors. This is in Trenčín region. Another one was this old castle was refurbished as a ecological center, and the third one was a large participation project in the Banská Bystrica region. It was also a former secondary school that is going to be turned into a community center and whole social impact services providing center in the housing estate. This is another project that we help to. This is also corrected. This is a classical senior care pension senior house, but what is specific on this that we help to raise the money to the woman who was dedicated to these services without any capital and without any like EU grants and so on. So she was able to, we empowered her to raise or to set up her own company and to manage the quite a large senior house in central Slovakia in very poor region. So this is something that was that she couldn't imagine, and she's the people around, they still think she grouped up with the mafia guys in the around. So there was quite a success story. And this is already our fund. We are managing currently a 20 million euro social impact fund that has these 4 groups of 4 areas of focus. It's education, social services and healthcare, social inclusion, and community development. And now I will go to our pilot solutions or the solutions we are developing here in Slovakia in order to test or to prove the concepts of different solutions. We call it, we are not call it only the housing, but real estate development, impact real estate development. So we have 4 areas. First is general affordable real estate housing that is especially focused on the supporting different groups as were mentioned here with different needs, also including the small organizations that have a problem to have a stable environment to do their valuable work. Second one is assisted housing for seniors. We have two special. The Renzo is the general one, but we have a special vehicle also for these kind of services. Third one is a culture and creative community, because as I mentioned, we are developing the community-oriented solutions. That there are many stakeholders are meeting, and that's always there are individuals, there are small organizations, and and the content providers. The same for education. There are also 4 players: Eduence, Educreo, Smartfish, Renzo, that are focusing to help develop the infrastructure. So I will start with the most general one. This is social impact, real estate infrastructure development. Our platform is the Renzo, and they are focusing on different areas. There is first of all is affordable housing, and is assisted living for elderly people, education, community centers, and so on. Their claim is helping others to help. It means that they're providing, because the problem of the whole impact sector is that these organizations or communities doesn't have enough resources, doesn't have time, skill, profession. They don't have skill to be able to buy building, to do the refurbishment and everything. So Renzo is a fit of financing people and the people from the development sector that are helping to bring the tailor-made solution for organizations. For example, this is the project that is in central Slovakia, that is developed in cooperation with NGO called Antira. This anti-racism their mission is to bring the young orphan people, mainly from Roma population, to help them to become integrated into life. So this is the like first housing after they leave the orphanage house, and we started by acquisition of the building, but then it happened that the people that they were like a target group were employed, and they are doing the development on them, construction works on themselves. So there is much more aspects than development and financing. There is another example. There is one very active community in central South Slovakia. There is providing these community services, different community services in the area, but they are being kicked off of their premises because the owner changed their focus and they want to do it more commercial and so on. So we help them. They found the building, this beautiful building, historical building, this former. It is a special like the Scouts, but in Czechoslovakia it was the Sokols. It's kind of eagles. So we help them to buy the building. They are already offering the 10 flats for affordable housing, and there are also the community center and all the premises for the services they are already offering. So we help to another, and there is again tailor-made solution that the organization is able to pay a certain level of rent that was discussed and agreed. So everything had to be coordinated in order to be able to put it into life. So this is the second one. This is already the silvers. We have some also the innovative solutions for this is development of the housing for elderly people, but before entering the institutional care services, in order to bring to help them to be more active, longer active, to live in the community, to get the support services they are not able to do themselves, or is more complicated to do themselves. And there is also innovative financial instruments that this housing can be partially bought and partially rented. So it brings it's less more requiring less resources at the beginning, and you can change your situation. When you are downgrading from a big house, three generations house where nobody is living anymore, and you cannot afford to building that you can afford, and you are in the community of people of your age or of your interests and so on. This is second project is a bigger one, is like this one of the 10 plus million projects. You see the very, very ugly brownfield. This is a former school that is degrading. This is in the middle of the housing estate in the second largest city in eastern Slovakia, and we are going to develop there this assisted housing for seniors project that will be open in communication, or it will be also the open park for the community, and will be interactive with the surrounding. Okay, this is a cultural and creative communities. We have several platforms of players. There is Educreo and the Design Factory, and really in this kind of projects we are really using the syndication of the impact stakeholders, because we don't need only the money, but we need really the human capacities and skills. This is the crucial. And when you want to put together different communities, so you need to really coordinate these activities. So actually, we as a social innovators, or these platforms are acting as somebody who is like owning this. When you do a shopping center, you have this framework, and the content is provided by the smaller organizations that you can support on different with different financial instruments and lines. So this is kind of our approach. How do we develop these projects? We have several projects also in these cultural and creative communities. I already mentioned two. One was this Nová Cvernovka in Bratislava. Second one was Galeria Jabloň in Prievidza. And this is the third one in central Slovakia that is focused on culture and creativity community, also education, some long-term residencies for young artists, but also some longer residencies for older people that they want to learn or have learn something they are interested in the area of art. And also there will be the white building, there will be capacities for some impact tourism. So we are developing not only the urban area, but also the destination. So this is a mix of syndication of impact activities. That's our approach. Third one is the education, the same problem. We have the three problems or 5 problems, let's say. The first is people. So this is the human capacities in the educational sector and in the large cities, as far as the salaries of the institutional people in the education sector are the same around the Slovakia. So the problem is in the bigger cities when the housing is much more expensive. So we need to offer the housing for the teachers, but also there is a problem, infrastructural problem for the innovative providers of the education. It means not public schools, and also there is a problem for institutional development of the content providers. It means the small organizations, NGOs. So this is one of our project in Bratislava called EduHub, that is putting together all these functions together. There are like big institutions, smaller and smaller content providers together. Okay, so and these are the projects that we already kind of I feel that we started to discuss. This is a complex impact urban development solution in Western Slovakia. The leader of this project is also one of the partners in the Renzo company, and this could be used in our discussion as kind of impact housing incubator. That where we have different contents, impact contents, and we can develop on the area of content and some solutions, and also on the fundraising syndication. We can develop some innovative structures, or we are already in the process of development, and also in financing, and also in capacity coordination. So this is one of our current challenges we could discuss together. This is different. Another project of urban development. This is a very center. No, this is actually the conjunction of 5 of 6 parts of Bratislava. And this is a revitalization of all the like brownfield. There is on the left side there is a former ammunition factory, and this is going to be turned with cooperation with the self-governing region of Bratislava. Some private educational initiative that is backed by a private equity fund and by us. On the left side, there will be cultural and creative center with administration premises for the impact organizations, and also from some residential capacities for young artists and teachers. And the third one, this is a kind of culture and creative community urban rural solution. This is very close to Bratislava, but it's in a rural area. Creative meadow mixing the filming industry with the creative community, and also accessible housing for young artists and the related relevant people that will be in the ecosystem. So this is only part of our projects. Currently, we have in the pipeline around 100 to 150 million of projects in more than 20 projects. And so we are raising the capital for different projects. We have, as I mentioned, this scalable impact investment platform in different area. So the key word from our point of view is the absorption of the capacity of the capital. That is the problem. For example, when we started in 2012 with 10,000 euro projects, so on the other side there were like big players like CEB, AF that were looking at the envelopes of 50 million, 10 million, 100 million. So now we are like getting together on the same pace. So that's our approach, that we would be, we want to syndicate these stakeholders, and we are fundraising, and also we are on the process of developing some financial instruments. We would like to with EIB in also EF, EIB, also on the platform of FEBEA, and now we are currently heading for some 30 to 50 million. So if you are willing to join us, we would be happy to share the projects and the opportunities, and also discuss the structures that we were like talking about, potential fund of funds and so on. So thank you very much, and please have questions. These are our contacts, and you can see all our like references and projects on our website.
Thanks a lot, and it's really interesting to see how we can also develop a real estate market that is really more community-based, social-oriented, and it's really interesting. And yes, Marion, then you will share all the presentations with all the participants. Is this true?
Yes, I confirm.
Yeah, okay. So you can then, if you are interested, you can find the contact of our members in their slides. Or of course, you can also always contact us as FEBEA. We were happy to also to create some links in case you are interested to be in touch with some of our members. I know that we are really late, and so I thank you for the availability. I think that today we had really interesting discussion. It's true that housing is a complex problem, but I can see that there are a lot of people, from policymakers, from practitioners, that are really, that they want to try to solve, to contribute to make this affordable housing plan really interesting, really transformative. And so we will try to create this moment of the dialogue and the discussion. There is now a consultation that opened like 10 days ago. The Commission launched a consultation on affordable housing. So thanks, Rafael. So if you are interested, please participate in this consultation. It's important also to participate. And thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.